Today we'll talk about different types of conditional statements. Here, in most of the programming languages, there are two types of conditional statements. The first is the if-else expression, and the second one is the conditional operator. We will discuss both of them together. I'm not talking about C language specific, I'm talking in general for all of the programming languages. Now, before understanding these both of them conditional statements, first we need to understand better about expressions. So what are expressions? Combinations of variables and operators are expressions. So that's it. This is the simple thing. Now we can divide it into two parts: arithmetic expressions such as 5 plus 3 or 6 into 4 divided by 2. These all are examples of arithmetic expressions. In arithmetic expressions, we use arithmetic operators such as plus, minus, divide, modulus, etc. Now then comes the more important one, which is logical expressions. In logical expressions, we use relational and logical operators such as greater than equals, less than equals, not, and, or. These all are logical operators, and these are relational operators. There are some more examples such as equals, not equals, greater than, less than, these all. So these logical expressions, it converts into a logical value which may be 0 or 1. 0 is false and 1 is true. When they are converted to 0 or 1, we can decide whether the code inside if will run or inside the else part will run. So here in if expression, we actually give here the logical expression. Every expression is evaluated to a particular value, and it may be 0 or 1 in case of logical expressions. But in arithmetic expressions, suppose let's take this 5 plus 3 example. It is 8. Now 8 is true. Any value which is not 0 and which is greater than or equals to 1, greater than equals to 1 is true, is considered true. So if we give if 8, so like this, if 8, then what do you think, this will run or not? This code will run because 8 is not 0. Now, having discussed these expressions, now let us discuss the various forms of if-else statements. These if-else statements can have different types of forms and structures, and we'll be discussing them one by one. The first one is if expression and the statement. In this one, we have only a single statement inside the if expression. Here only single statement is there. If we add another statement such as st empty 2, suppose this is another statement, then this statement will not run. Only this statement will run if the condition is true, and if it is false, then obviously this is not going to run, and this will execute as usual. Now the second one is if expression, and this is a block of code. Here we have a group of codes. Many statements will be there, many lines of code will be there, and these all will be executed only if this expression is true. If it is false, this will not execute. Now the third one we have is, here we have else. With if, we are associating else. If this expression is true, then as usual this will run like normal. But if it is false, then we can provide another part of code which we want to run only if this expression is false, and this code will be inside the else part. Now this can be represented diagrammatically in flowchart form. This is the expression, and it is decision 1. Now if this expression is true, this right side of the code will run where we have a number of statements. This will usually be inside if, and this is the else part. If this false, now we can run all the statements. After this, we have in the fourth number if, else, if ladder. Now if we go on combining if and else, with if we can combine one else, with else we can associate again one if, with this if again we can have an else. In this way, if we go on chaining all this, we will get a ladder kind of structure, and we call this if else ladder. Now if this first expression is true, then all the code inside this will run, and if this is false, it will go to check the next one. If the next one is true, it will run, or if this is false, it will go on like that, checking one by one, and the moment it finds a true block at if part which is true, then it will execute it, and it will ignore all the rest of the ones. Example, if this expression comes out to be true, then all this will not execute. Now here at the last, we can optionally give an else or not. We can add or we cannot add. It's our wish. If we add this else part at the last of if else if ladder, then this else will execute if none of them turns out to be true. Or if some of them turns out to be true, if one of them turns out to be true, then this else will obviously not execute and only that block of code will execute. Now in the number 5 we have nested if statement. In nested if, what we have is another if statement inside the outer if statement. So we are nesting, we are putting one if inside another if. Now this if may have its own else part optionally, or it may not have its own part, else part. Now if this expression is true, only then this if expression will have a chance of executing, and all the statements or codes whatever is there inside this inner if, this will run only and only if this is true and this also should be true. Now we'll discuss about conditional operator. This operator is like a condensed form of if else statement. Here this is the general structure. Here first we have an expression. It is also an expression in the same way where we use in if statements. If this turns out to be true, then this code will run. If it is true, then whatever code we put here or whatever expression we put here will be evaluated. Or if this is false, this one is the false part, this all the codes or the expression will be evaluated. This will be ignored if it is false. So if it is true, this will run. If it is false, this will run. Now let's take an example here. Here we have two variables a and b. If a is greater than b, then printf a is greater. We will show that a is greater if a is greater than b. Usually in program, user will provide values such as enter a, we will print a message. Then suppose a is 8 and b is 5. If 8 is greater than 5, yes, it is true in this case, so this will be printed. Or else if we give some other value such as b equals to 10 and a equals to 2, then this part of the code will run. Since this is the false part of the code, this will turn out to be false, the expression for this case, since 10 is not greater than 2. We should provide this b, yes, b equals to 10, b equals to 10 and a equals to 2. Since 2 is not greater than 10, this will be false and this b is greater will run. Okay, let's move on. And this is the representation which we can show for the same line of code. We can equivalently represent it in if-else form. In if-else form, we see that it's more easier to read, but here it's more difficult to read, but it's short and concise. Now we can also nest this conditional operator. Let's take this example. If a is greater than b, then we see that this is the outer one. Then this part is the true block. This is the true part and this is the false part. So if a is greater than b, then this part of the code will run, we know. Or if it turns out to be false, this expression, then this false part will run. Now if it is greater than b, suppose we consider if it is greater than b. If a is greater than b, then since we know that this part of the code will run, now here again we have another conditional operator. We see that this is again a conditional operator. Now here we are again checking if a is greater than c. Okay, if it is greater, then we will print this message that a is largest. Otherwise we will show that c is largest. We can note that a is largest because we have compared a with both b and c, and it is large in both the cases. So then a is largest. But if a is not larger than c, then we'll come to know that c is largest because a is greater than b. But if a is less than c, then we will know that c is the largest. Now if this is false, we'll directly print that a is not largest because we will not know which one is the largest. So this was it all about conditional operators and conditional statements, if else. Thank you.